Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Don't mind me, I'm just climbing in through my window. And I'm here with you right now to answer some lovely, delicious questions. Questions that probably would do quite well with a bit of pepper and a bit of salt, fried gently with some brandy, and then eaten with some mushrooms or something like that. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Q&A with Fred 44. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to follow the last Q&A right now, because of course, as you know, if you listen to it, it was the red wine special, where I got a little bit tipsy towards the end, and a lot of people, I expected some people to say that this one was very strange, this one didn't really work, it was too out of the ordinary. But I didn't really expect anyone to say that this is the best one I've ever done, and I got a lot of messages like that. Of course, I don't think that there is a lot of long-lasting success in speaking to a microphone whilst drunk, but it did please me knowing that some people liked it. I was worried that I didn't really intend on uploading it. I was worried that it was too rambling, but apparently, I mean, I didn't know this, but I'm like one of those sort of exotic witch doctors from some Caribbean island who takes all sorts of poisons and weird herbs in order to reach some kind of elevated, enlightened state of sort of higher consciousness. I'm apparently like one of those witch doctors that when I drink red wine, I come across as more wise, more witty, and more insightful. I didn't know that, but now I do. So I started thinking if is this true only for red wine, or should I try some other spirits, some other liquors, some other booze that you could sort of listen to me high on those alcohol, high drunk. That's one of those funny things. Alcohol is a drug, but we don't say that you are high on alcohol. We say that you are drunk. Which, hypocrisy, I suppose. This is why marijuana, cannabis, that is illegal, whereas everyone drinks alcohol is the man pushing down the cannabis smoker. Yes, 420, legalize it, man. Uh, but maybe I should try do all sorts of different recordings drunk on other booze. I could do the bourbon special, the brandy special, the cognac special. I could do Swedish stuff and do an aquavit special where I sing Swedish drinking songs. Hilang går, sjunga på and then drink it up all. And I could do a vodka special. I could do a fancy sort of Bailey's cream liqueur special. I could do a Irish coffee special. The possibilities are endless, but I don't know whether or not I will have the same kind of impact drunk on those drinks. We could try and make this as an experiment. I mean, it would be quite an odd experiment because it would be very situational. I mean, you couldn't really replicate the experiment. Usually when they do sort of social psychological experiments, they have a group of 100 people, not just one Swede sitting alone in a room drinking a lot of alcohol. So it would be a very peculiar experiment. But if you want to, I should investigate possibilities. But we can try and do some really damn good research in this area, because I don't think that there has been enough research done on how alcohol affects the body. I think that alcohol is one of those really obscure drugs that people don't really take, and I'm willing to, like some kind of pioneering science fiction writer in the 60s, they took LSD in order to open up the door of perception. I'm willing to experiment here and open up the door of alcohol, this obscure little drug that you may not have heard of. In any case, I think the best way of following some unexpected success is by doing the same thing you've always done. Just pretend it never happened. It's one of those things that I'm most impressed by any kind of creative creators, is that when Pink Floyd released Dark Side of the Moon and pretty much created the most successful rock album of the decade and arguably one of the most successful rock albums of the last century, the huge critical and commercial success, immediately the first experiment they began working on was creating an album called Household Objects. Their idea was to create an album entirely without any traditional instruments and just create instruments themselves using household objects. That was Pink Floyd's first idea of following up Dark Side of the Moon. They eventually made Wish You Were Here, which was more sensible, but I really like the idea of following up success with something that is doomed to be unsuccessful. So this QnA, I mean, clearly as the last QnA was my Dark Side of the Moon. It was my Sgt. Pepper, my London's Calling. I'm trying to think of big rock records, but it was my big success, and now I'm going to have to do something completely weird and unsuccessful. So I'm going to do the rest of this in absolute gibberish. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. First question. This question comes from the person I answered previous Q&A, the typing cat. I forgot to mention their name, but the name was Smiley Cat. That's why I said it was a cat. So Smiley Cat says this in the comment section. Another question from the typing cat. My friend asked me this today while we were walking home from town, and I thought it was perfect for you. It was perfect for you after that beauty rant. What's the largest turn on / off a woman can have? Maybe a man won't judge. Well, I can't speak for all men. I would love to, but I would have to be elected, and I can't be bothered to do that. So instead I can just speak for myself, and there's the few people who are willing to allow me to speak for them. What I find most unappealing in some women is stupidity. I never understood the sort of attraction to the bimbo ideal, the way that some men apparently want their women to be less intelligent than them. Not that I want or demand that the women I seize, not that I demand them to be more intelligent than me or even my intellectual match. I mean, they can be, average if they want to. They don't have to have an high IQ or whatever. But I don't see this appeal in... There is this sense among some men that I find highly disturbing, which is that they pretty much want a woman they could sort of take care of. A little bit like they sort of want to have a wife that's almost feel like a daughter. Like especially this attraction that some people have towards teenage girls. And this idea of barely legal, someone who's just above the age of consent. And I never understood that. I don't understand what's so attractive about young girls. I mean, I have an older sister, and I remember when she was a teenager, she was a fucking nightmare. I mean, teenage girls are fucking dreadful. Like this idea of having a bunch of 18-year-old girls following you around. Why would anyone want that? I mean, I'm sure I know that you're not supposed to talk about women's age. That's not polite. That's not polite of a gentleman. But most of the women that I've found attractive are, almost what you could call middle-aged, are properly in the adult sort of range. I know that our society sees older men as more attractive than younger men, because older men are more sophisticated, they're more refined, they're less rude, they're sort of more put together. They are not as crazy or as immature as younger guys are, and it's considered very... that's why in Hollywood the leading men are all like 40 and 50, whereas the leading women are all 20 and in the early 30s. So there is... our society sees it as okay for men to be older, and even admirable for men to be older, whereas women are supposed to stay young. well, I suppose I did say that I don't want any 18-year-olds following me around because I get so many of them. No, but I don't think that I should say, I'm in my 20s. People listen to this, always seem to think that I'm in my 40s. I mean, I am an old man trapped in a young man's body. I have perpetually a middle-aged perspective on things, it seems. And what I want is to sit down in an armchair and smoke a pipe and then moan about things. That's sort of what I want. So I am already a very old man. And I'm sure that there are several women in their 18-year-olds, like 18-year-old women, who are the same. All they want is to sit down on an armchair, grow a mustache, and smoke a pipe. So I'm sure that there are women who feel older than they actually are. So maybe it doesn't have to do anything with age, it just have to do with maturity. But there's still considered a sexual fantasy for guys to like schoolgirls. This Catholic schoolgirl thing of wearing a uniform with a short skirt or whatever. That is considered a genuine sexual fantasy, like one of those cliches. And I never understood that. I never seen a group of schoolgirls and thought, oh, I want to take one of them with me home. Oh, yes. That's so creepy to me, and not just in a sort of pedophile way. It just seems creepy in a Peter Pan sort of way, as if you refuse to grow up. Like, it is nothing sexy to me about schoolgirls. There's nothing sexy to me about school. But like, when I think about school, I get miserable. I had a miserable time in school when I was a teenager. So why would I want to somehow go back to that? I suppose that my sexual fantasy really is a woman wearing some kind of tweed dress with glasses and long, unkept hair, bragging to me about the books of poetry she's written. I mean, that would be my sexual fantasy, because that's hot. So I suppose I can't really say that I suppose I'm not really, maybe I'm not normal. Maybe my idea of attractive women is somehow strange. But I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of guys who are just like me. It's just that media don't really like to present this side. Media, as I said, media wants to present one fixed idea of what is attractive or not. They want to make things as simple as possible, because simple things sell better than complicated things. We all know that. So that's why we have this very twisted idea of what is considered beautiful and what is not considered beautiful. Older guys, because you want your Robert Downey Jr., you want your Johnny Depp and George Clooney's, and then you want your Megan Foxes and whatever. So we can't really go to media at all. I think the true thing about sexuality, the true thing about attraction, is that it all varies between individuals. It's very tempting to have this yin and yang idea that somehow the partner we're looking for is someone who completes us, someone who has characteristics that we don't have, someone who we can work together as a team somehow. But I don't think that's true. I think that what we all look for is basically ourselves. We want someone who is like us, only with different genitalia, so we don't have to worry about incest. What the reason why I said that I find women wearing tweed bragging about their poetry books is because that's what I want to do. I want to wear tweed and brag about my books, if I could write books and find some kind of publisher. That's my ideal. So obviously that's what I want in women, because I want women that are like me. We all want. If you're gay, you want a man that's like you. If you're lesbian, you want a woman that's like you. If you're a heterosexual woman, you want a man that's like you. I'm trying to make this as progressive as possible by admitting all sexualities. If you're asexual, you want no one. That's bound to get me into controversy. So yes, basically after that long ramble, that's the only answer I can give. We don't know. Everyone is unique. Everyone is pretty snowflake, and we all have different desires. You can't say that what does all men think of that, just as you can't say what do all women think. It would be easier if that was the case, because we wouldn't be as confused about these matters, but you just have to go with guys that are like you. Which, if you are an older woman, if you do like poetry, if you are published, if you have a fetish for tweed, then please contact me, and I'll schedule a date, basically an interview, and we'll see about continue on from there. So anyway, the second question. This comes from the comment section as well, and it's from Ben Ashton. Q&A question. What is the one thing you'd most like to change about the world? Well, if I am going to be honest, it's sadly quite boring, because I, like a lot of people, you would want peace on Earth. No more wars, no more fighting, no more conflicts. That's what I would want, and I think that's hopefully something that people would agree on. I wish there weren't anyone in the world sitting there saying that wars are unnecessary. You can argue that it's difficult to get rid of wars, or you can argue that peace on Earth is an impossibility. But if you could get it, if you could use magic to get whatever you wanted to, if there is a single person who seriously thinks that, no, peace in the world that doesn't really sound that appealing, we have to have some wars, that person must be a creep. Must be a terrible creep. And I don't believe that peace on Earth is necessarily possible, not as mankind works right now, but if I could make any kind of change, that would possibly be it. I mean, if I had a smaller change, I suppose I would make everyone insatiably attracted to me. That would be wonderful. Well, actually, it wouldn't be wonderful, because I might end up being torn limb from limb. That would actually be a terrible thing. There's a lot of those sort of scenarios that you can imagine in your head. The sort of dream scenario where you could get something completely fantastic, and you realize that if that was done in practice, you'd be quite terribly off. Like, that's all the whole thing about the Midas touch. Whatever you touch turn to gold. Well, that means that you can't touch anything you love. You can't touch your family members. You can't touch your child without turning them into a gold statue. Actually, the way it would work is that you would just convert part of your child into gold. Unless you would have to touch your entire child before they turn into gold. So if you touch their cheek, only their cheek would turn into gold, wouldn't it? What is the radius of your hand gold touching thing? If I were to touch a car, would the entire car turn into gold, or would it just be the sort of exterior of the car? Would the engine turn into gold? That's the sort of thing that people don't really think about, is it? People mention this whole Midas touch thing of everything you touch turn to gold, but they never clear up these sort of things. They never go into details, which is why I hate folklore and mythology. This is why I hate religion. I would be Christian if the Bible went into details about what God did before he created the universe. Because clearly I must have done something. He couldn't just have woken up one day and said, well, I have to create mankind in 7 days. And why did he need 7 days? How did he know that it would take 7 days? Well, this is why you put me on a rant there, little Ashton. So, the boring answer, I would make peace on Earth. The more fun answer is that I would make everyone into attractive women, except for me. And then I would try and make them timid in some way so that they don't tear myself from limb to limb. And then I would also make I would make science advance to the point where a woman can get another woman pregnant. So I don't have to be, in charge of pretty much furthering humanity. I don't have to be in charge of impregnating so many women, because that would be a challenge. I just want more women in the world so that my odds of finding some perfect life partner, will be greater. And it's not too much to ask, I think. Like, people don't have to know that I am the one who caused all men to turn into women. They might suspect something due to the fact that I'm the only man left alive. But yeah, I'm also quite fine with, there can be new men born. I don't need to, stop men from ever existing again. It's just that I should be the only one of my generation. And then we go back to the thing I said earlier. Like, suddenly I could represent all men, because I would be the only man alive, so I would only be representing myself. I mean, the more we think about this, my dear audience, the more it makes sense. Like, I should do a petition to make this happen. Somehow we could convince God that this is a good idea, and he will go, scratch his beard and go, well, actually, when I think about it, It probably is the better way of having society. And then I will shake hands with God. I think God is a fan of mine. Hello, God.
Hello, Fred. I think that this Q&A wasn't a very good follow-up to the last one.
Well, I'm sorry, God. I'm just trying my best. I'm just a man.
Well, I created you in my image.
Well, you say that to everyone.
Well, it's true.
Well, I think that I'm gonna have to go now, I'm afraid.
Okay, goodbye.
I'm just gonna climb out the window again.